with respect to religious exemptions, there is a clear legal argument that states are required to offer a religious exemption under the federal Constitution. That's an issue that's never been taken up by the Supreme Court, so it's never been definitively answered. But in general, I don't think court is the way to address these issues, because you never know what a court's going to do. You can have what looks like a slam dunk argument, and there isn't one here that I know of. I think there's a strong one to be made. But if you lose in court, you can set bad precedent. You lose in the legislature, you can come back the next time and try again. You've lost time, but you don't set a point of reference in the law that could be going the other direction. So I think we have to be very selective about what cases we take to court at all. And there's a long history of failed vaccine cases in court, particularly when people look at the sort of broader issues. I have a right to decide what to put in my body. A nurse took that to court in 2011, 2012, something like that in South Carolina, and I sort of cringed and I said, I hope I'm wrong, but I wouldn't take the case. I don't think you can win it. We don't have a right to decide what to put in our body. The question is not what do we think our rights are, what do we think they should be. The question is, objectively, analytically, emotionally, neutrally, as much as possible, how does the law work right now, and what is it? And attorneys and others can disagree. Sometimes it's not always clear, but we don't have a right to decide what to put in our body, and we should be very upset about that. This is an example of what I was saying earlier. Vaccines are different from everything else. Your vaccine supposedly protects everybody else. So with vaccines, at least, you don't get to decide that, because we can't let you put everyone else at risk. Because we all know that if you're unvaccinated, somehow that magically makes everybody else's vaccines not work. So, but the point here is that we keep wanting to approach these cases logically and analytically, and the legal system that we have in place right now, healthcare policy and laws driven by mainstream medicine, which despite having many wonderful people in it, is ultimately corrupt and dysfunctional to a pretty significant degree. You start with a corrupt or dysfunctional system, and even when the courts and legislatures work the way they're supposed to, that's not a given in today's world, but even when it does happen, if they're starting with corruption, they're going to end up probably with a skewed or corrupt policy. That's, in one respect, how we got where we are today. So the answer is not always to just come up with the right information and go into court with it, and this is a generalization, but courts don't decide the science, they weigh the evidence. And the majority of doctors favor vaccines, it's public policy, the state and federal health agencies, and so forth. The long-term solution here is to expose the corruption, document it, and then expose it in whatever manner that is required for that to compel mainstream medicine to reform. This is why I love what you guys did and the way you did it, because there are literally psychological barriers, subconscious psychological barriers that prevent people from hearing what we want them to know. We go into the legislatures with a summary of the whole issue and we throw that at them and it bounces off. People can hear an isolated issue, they're much more likely to be able to hear that than they are bringing them up to speed on the issue. And this does something that none of the other wonderful videos and documentaries that I've seen anyway have done. It focuses on a single issue. And there are a lot of people who can hear that can't hear the whole story summarized and thrown at them all at once. It's overwhelming. Just this one point is an incredibly dark, ugly, uncomfortable place to take people. Multiply that by some huge number to get the whole controversy, right? They cannot hear it. We've got to do what this movie is doing. Pick one or just a very few key points, because the goal here, legislatively, see, it's in the legislatures where rights are won or lost, so that's where the primary battle is. Of course, it's a science issue. Do they work? Are they safe? Are they effective? Are there other things we can do? But the way we interface with this on a day-to-day level is a legal issue. If vaccines are required, there's either a law that says you can say no or there isn't. So the pharmaceutical lobby is pushing their agenda aggressively. There are, any time over the last couple of years, 100 or more vaccine bills pending in 30 or more states. This is not a stagnant issue on any level, but our rights are being taken away, as people in California know better than anybody right now, and in other places whittled away, as more vaccines are being required by more and more people, not just by state laws now, but hospitals all over the country mandating flu shots for their healthcare worker employees as a condition of employment. This thing is rolling out. So we've got to become legislatively active. And this is the last thing you want to hear in California. Oh, go back and do this legislatively. Yeah, like that's possible, maybe not. And I don't have a short answer for you there. But more often than not, I think the answer is legislative. I've sort of dodged your question unintentionally. I have an approach that I think is the least expensive and the simplest and the most focused, and I haven't seen anybody else put that forth yet. And I'd be delighted to talk with people in California if anybody wants to talk about it and see whether or not it makes sense to try it.
Right.